Good morning, Rabbi Isai. Lilu Nishma, Simi Mirosibus Mordechai, live from New York, a very snowy New York. Didn't snow quite as much as people anticipated, but I think about a foot where I'm at. In different places, a lot of flights canceled. Our flight was canceled. We shall be delayed by a day, Bezer Hashem, if everything else goes keshuro. We have a beautiful video that wraps up our Shabbaton. Let's check it out.
The feeling, the excitement is beyond.
Give me a gewaltige Shabbos. Mamish mi ein oilam haba.
This is what's going to bring Mashiach. Right here, starting right here this Shabbos. It's going to be unbelievable and unforgettable. Motzei Shabbos, we just finished the best Shabbos of my life.
I have just had the most incredible, life-changing Shabbos.
Whoever wasn't here doesn't understand what it is.
Right there.
There's so much achdus and such a beautiful Kiddush Hashem that was made here today.
Mark your horse.
Another Besechta.
Some events, you can't communicate on camera. You have to be it to experience it.
It's something that I wish every person would just come, whether you do the daf or you don't, to see a tzibur of Klal Yisrael together like this.
It's unbelievable. I'm in a different world. I don't know where I am right now. I'm so emotional.
Talking with people that you've never met in your life, but it feels like they're your brothers. It's really great.
Such a Shabbos. It's incredible to be here. Everyone, the family together.
This Chaskas HaTorah is amazing. Everybody's happy.
It's beautiful. It's unreal to know that all this comes because sitting and learning 45 minutes to 60 minutes a day.
Let's hear the last.
Menachem Toker, the famous radio personality from Eretz Yisrael. Beautiful. Great job, guys. Great job. Shimi Braun brings the daf to life and attempts kmitza using the snow in Borough Park. Gewaldig. Yaakov Young in Florida, stranded in New York due to the snowstorm, takes Reb Eli in the daf to 770. The official edition MDY Shas the Masechta by the Iranian Levi families. Perek, anonymous. Nishma Simi Mirosi, Ali Sheba Basri Borchala, Shalom Ner Aleph, Techana Kotash Payalev, Tedish Rosur Chaim, David and Chayla Salomon. In memory of Vavi Moiri, Reb Shmuel Baruch, Reb Chaim Tzvi Doiv, Zechron Baruch Nifter, Yud Zayin Iyar. Rabbi Isai, the daf is sponsored by David Salomon. It's his day today because we just advertised the opening of, I don't even know if he chaps. This daf is the Monday daf. He's opening up the Miami location and Nick's together with Nick on Monday, today. So I don't know if he decided to coincide that. I don't think so. That's how things work in this world. So he went to do a mitzvah gereres mitzvah. He also was very much involved with the opening of the North Miami Beach location, with the renovation. He put in a lot of money to the renovation of the caravan over there, the MDY caravan and location. So Yishkoyach David. The Masech is sponsored by David Salomon, dedicated in memory of Avi Meir of Shmuel Baruch Ben. Here we go. MDY Daf Yomi Shir, Miami Beach, Florida, satellite location based beyond Tzvi, which is Nick's, which I learned a lot from Nick. I learned that you could have a shul with Balabatim who don't speak during Davening, don't speak during Kaddish. Zero talking by Nick's. Based beyond Tzvi. Every single day, Sunday through Thursday at 7 p.m. at night. Yep, p.m. usually means night. Friday, 1 hour before candlelighting. Motzei Shabbos at 10 p.m. Come on, I know on Shabbos they throw a wild party, so Be'ezer Hashem, they'll treat the Olam nicely, I'm sure. The Masechta sponsors: Anonymous Refuah Shlema L'Moshe Ben Izaha, Anonymous for complete Refuah Shlema, and Arichas Yom to Leiba Bas Esther Amein, Yisrael and Malki, Totally Taras Picham Alfi Zav Chesed. We're so proud of you, Yaakov Mordechai. Keep steiging. Send the Gross and family, Canvey Island, UK, and Otter Rebellion, changed my meaning of life. Plenty of money, Yossi Mark and Benny, and all those can be Tzarech MDY, Akash Baruch Hu Shalom Schara. Only Akash Baruch Hu can pay back. You can't get a salary that pays anywhere near the amount of work that these guys do. Ariel Simon Refuah Shlema of Imari Baruch B'Miriam, and another monthly sponsor. These are all monthly sponsors, 10 in a row. Jamie Azulai, Refuah Shlema, Esther Bas Luna. Anonymous Refuah Shlema, Naftali Herzben, Henry Leah, Hidden Tzaddik in our generation. Anonymous in memory of Mazal, Bat Leah, Basanada, and Iskia. Anonymous, the schus, a verdict that is good and open and revealed way for Yosef Mordechai ben Bat Leah, Yehudis and Yehuda Lewis as a schus for everyone in need of Shidduch, Amein. Anonymous for the merit of Michal ben Yisrael Yosef, success and blessing in all areas of life. Sprinting out and growth in the Ishmas. Shem Zam ben Yitzchak, Isaac, ben Yaman Isaac ben Tzvi Hirshak Koyin, for Shlema Yonatan Edom Avashever Bracha. Anonymous for the merit of Refuah Shlema from Malka Bas Chaya. Centers.com helping you in David Tzibur with Papa Minyanim anywhere worldwide in Ishmas Chaim Shalom and Mitzalo. Daily sponsors: Anonymous, Refuah Shlema, for Shlomo Eliyahu, Ben Esther Leah, a big part of the MDY Mishpacha, extended Mishpacha, Refuah Shlema, for Shlomo Eliyahu, Ben Esther Leah, the Schiff family, heartfelt prayers for speedy Refuah Shlema for Malka Bas Chaya Itzkowitz, Refuah Shlema for Malka Bas Chaya. Here we go, by her family. So two of them, she should have a Refuah Shlema B'Koroiv. MDY Art month. Yosef ben Chaya Sar for Parnasa Berevach. Refuah Shlema Yonatan Eitan ben Meshav Bracha. Refuah Shlema Mordechai ben Esther. Refuah Hayeled Daniel Zev ben Ayelet Esther Raboisai. We are holding by the Mishnah. We have an easier daf than we had yesterday. Says the Heilige Mishnah, I want to remind the Olam that we have a product called Nothing But the Daf, NBTD. Nothing But the Daf. It takes out the sponsorships, it takes out the jokes, the musar. If you want just daf, just Torah with the charts, check that out. It's great for Chazara. We have it in Hebrew, we have it in English. Shir lasts about 25-30 minutes. Omar Rebbe Elazar. Sorry, says the Mishnah. Nitmas achas menachalois. Here we go. Check this out. We're starting off with a piece of art. We know that there's 12 lechem aponims, there's 2 rows, there's 2 zdarim. Each seder, each row contains 6 chalois. And we also have 2 spoonfuls of levina. And come the chaver kedisha of the mice. They walk by, they have a dead mouse on the stretcher, and the dead mouse touches 1. What happens to the second row of breads? Since they weren't touched, perhaps they're not tamei. One of the chalas, or a whole row of it. Rebbe Yehuda, we must burn all the chalas. We consider all 12 of them tamei, and therefore you should take them out to the place where we burn stuff. There's 2 places. There's one inside the Beis Hamikdash. I'm going to show you the one that's outside. According to some Rishonim, we burn it inside because it became tamei inside. The point is, there's a pile of stuff that we burn. Rabbi Yehuda holds that if you touch one, you touch them all. Shein korban tzibur chalok, at the end we're going to say, because at the end of the day, we cannot divide up the carbon. They're all considered one entity, one guf, one gedusha, I guess. So if you touch one bread, all 12 become tamei. And Chacham argue, they say that the row of challah that the mouse touched, that you're right, but the other row, not. You know, this is Rabbi Yehuda, all 12, they say no. The dead mouse touched the left row, the left is tamei, the right is tar. So when we're talking about the chalais, the lechem apanim, so we have the bazichim that go on the mizbeach. In other words, when we're talking about, we're going to be discussing the two breads on Shavuos that come together with the two shlamim. So over there you have Zrikas Adam, you have the matter, you have what allows you to eat the bread. Burning the bazichin of the lechem apanim allows you to eat the lechem apanim. Burning or doing Zrikas Adam with the blood of the shlamim allows you to eat the two breads of Shavuos. So says Rabbi Lazar, we have a machlokes before the matter happened, before you did Zrikas Adam, before you were makriv the frankincense, the levina of the bezichim onto the mizbeach when it comes to the lechem apanim. Aval achas zrika, but once you locked it in with the matir, the reakol atomim tumasiv atari ochel, it's as you see on the screen, whatever you touched is tamei, whatever you didn't touch remains tar. So what would be the machlokes then if there is no zrika? The Gemara is going to take this back, but for now, the Gemara says that the machlokes is, how do we view the tzitz? We know that the tzitz is one of the clothing that the Kohen Gadol wears on his forehead. It says Kodesh Lashem, different machlokes, how we do it, but it has powers to remove the concern of tumah that we might have. The question is, once you have this tzitz, can you even eat something that has an issue with tumah? That what? Rabbanan Savriya tzitz miratza ala chilois. So says Rashi that the zrika accomplishes, but you're not allowed to eat the bread. It's a good zrika. That's what the tzitz does, that even though there was tumah, but there was a good zrika. In other words, the carbon is a good carbon. But to eat the bread, that you cannot do. Why? Because, check it out, there's a Mefurish passage that says, once there's food that became tamei, there's a carbon that became tamei, you're not allowed to eat it. Okay. So Rabbanan hold the tzitz is good and it makes the carbon good. The tzitz cannot accomplish anything, and you're not allowed to eat any of the breads, even though you're allowed to be makriv because tumah hutri b'tzibur. Okay. Tumah hutri b'tzibur. Amalei Ravuna b'reder Rav Nosson Rav Papa. Va'ilin, things that go onto the mizbeach like blood, like the kmitza, go onto the mizbeach. That's it. You're not supposed to put it on the mizbeach if it's tumah, but if you put it on, in Madul Yerdu, the tzitz gives it a kapara. Upligi, and there's machlokes nevertheless, even in that case. If one of the two spoons of air, one of the two spoons became tamei. Here, check it out, another case. We have the Chaver Kedisha, mouse Chaver Kedisha, walk by. And the person somehow extends his hand and touches one of the spoons. So one is tamei, the other not. What's the halacha? They both consider tamei, but you continue going on. The tzitz is miratza for it. Why? Because we don't separate these items. If you touch one, you touch them all. It's as if you touch them all. No, The one that's red, the one that's tamei remains tamei. The one that's tahar is tahar. Void. Another question. When it comes to Korban Pesach and one of the Shvatim, you have 12 Shvatim, let's say Reuven, all of Shevet Reuven is Tameh. So now somebody from Shevet Shimon is Tameh. Can he handle the carbon? All of Shevet Reuven can handle the carbon because Tumah Hodra B'Tzibur, if there's a large, the majority of one Shevet is Tameh, it's Hutar. What about the rest of the Shvatim? So the answer is yes. They could all do it in Tumah. Why? Because when it comes to the karbanos of the tzibur, we don't divide them, we don't split them up. So if one shevet is kosher to do it, even betumah, so all shvatim are, because we cannot break up any of the shvatim. And as the Gemara, what does that have to do with the machlokes regarding the tzitz, like Rav Papa wanted to discuss? This has nothing to do with the tzitz. What does this have? This has nothing to do with tzitz. This has just to do with whether or not we the tzibur's chaluk. That's the lashon in the Mishnah of she'ein karban tzibur chaluk. We don't split up the karbanos. We don't split up the shvatim. That's the idea. One more question. Going back to this, if one row of challah, whoa, how did that happen? One row of challah became tomei. I was saying before it was the left one, now it's just the right one. Okay, well, it doesn't matter. They're both considered. It's just maybe because I have to start here. Now it's going to be the left. So cute. Boom. The halacha is that they're both tamei. You send them both to get burned. And it says, L'fisha ein korban tzibur chaluk. Because we don't split them up. If you touch one pile, it's as if you touched all piles. You divide them up. If it's true, you're saying that it depends. The machlokes is about a tzitz. You should have said, you should explain that has to do with the tzitz. No, he got this with tradition from his Rebbe and his Rebbe from his Rebbe. That if you cannot break things up. So if what part of the pile, one bread even becomes tamei, it's as if all the breads became tamei. The boy say, we know that if somebody has one of four things occur to him, he crossed the ocean. My father's in the house that I'm at right now, and my father and I have ongoing. I only argued with him once about it. I saw that he took it seriously, but I'm not a poisek or anything. But I just, as a pilot, I don't feel comfortable saying goimel every time I come to Israel. Only because I understand a little bit better than he does how planes operate, how they work. And yeah, the Gemara says if you cross an ocean, but I don't feel like a plane is crossing the ocean in terms of the waves, in terms of the storms. It's going around over the ocean. It's not crossing the ocean. So that was my argument with him. I feel like a commercial plane, Blian Hara, King Yirbu, the chances of an accident on a commercial airline are far, far smaller than the chances of getting hurt in a car accident on the way to the airport in a car. And so I don't feel comfortable saying Hagoyim. And then I heard that the briskers don't and this one doesn't. Okay. It happens to be that the pilot, one of the pilots was just on a flight, and he said a beautiful vart because there was some turbulence and this person next to me was getting very nervous. And the pilot gets onto the intercom and onto the PA system and makes an announcement that says, planes love this kind of turbulence. They live for this. They play in this. And there's a lot of truth to it. They're designed, I don't know if you know, but that commercial planes are designed to do somersaults. They could do complete, what do they call them, acrobatics. They're designed for that. They could do flips and all that stuff because the wings, it has never happened. And this Nathan Zucker told me, a pilot from Delta, and I said this also before, but I heard it from him. It's never happened that a plane broke up because of turbulence. Never happened that a wing broke, that something happened to the plane because of turbulence. Yeah, people inside can get hurt if they don't wear the seatbelts, but the plane itself is solid. Anyway, I'll call upon him. Crossing the ocean in the time of the Gemara in a wooden boat, you get to the other side, you say Hagoymo. That, no question. Crossing the desert requires Hagoymo. Being sick and becoming healthy requires Hagoymo. Coming out of jail requires Hagoymo. So our very talented artist Shlomo put all four things together into one video. It's a little long, but it brings out the Taida. What happens when you are saved? So you bring a carbon Taida, one animal. Shlomo went crazy, he brought four because he figured that you have to bring four. I'm not sure that he's right. And a bunch of breads, 40 breads. So here goes.
Get them below deck, quickly now.
One daf at a time, one scoop of earth at a time. Oh, so now he came out of jail and now he's going to cross the desert. So now it's the second thing that he has to give Goimel for. Now he's very, very sick because he's hot. So now he goes to Vizhnitz to get the lachamim, the 40 lachamim. He has to bring a toida, at least one. Says the Mishnah, ha toida mefagelas es halechem. So when we have, so that's our toida. When a person has a thought of pigul that he's going to eat this toida tomorrow instead of today, you're only allowed to eat it today, and his thought is to eat it tomorrow. So that automatically does pigul to all the breads. But if the thought was on the breads, then it doesn't transfer that isser of pigul to the animal. Ha-toida mefagelas es halechem, v'halechem einoi mefagelas ha-toida. The bread does not cause pigul to the animal. Keitzad, what's the case? Shochat es ha-toida lechol mimeno lemachar. He shechs the toida, thinking in his brain that he's going to eat it outside the allotted time. In other words, tomorrow, he's not going to eat it today, he's going to eat it when he's not allowed to eat it tomorrow. He v'halechem fugalim, both the animal and the bread become pigul, and if you eat from it, you're chayiv kares. Lechem and lechem l'malchar, but if his thought was on the bread, that he's going to eat the bread tomorrow, delicious bread, and he wants to eat it tomorrow, he's going on vacation, he needs to bring some bread. If he wasn't thinking about the animal, it applies to the bread only, the pigul, and not to the carbon. The same halacha applies on Shavuos when you have two sheep. Oh, let me time out. I don't want to skip that. Very important. As he's shechting, he's thinking of doing it in the red clock in the place on the animal. So since he did it on the animal, it transfers. You see how it just transfers, jumps from the animal to the bread. But if his thought is that he's going to eat the bread outside the allotted time. So it does not transfer to the animal. Look, there's actually a special invisible shield. The animal's actually laughing at you because he will not become pigul. So now that we have the case of the two breads, if you do pigul on the two sheep, then automatically the two breads become pigul. But if you reverse it and you do the pigul on the bread, it does not cause pigul to the sheep. Keitzad, what's the case? If you shech the sheep with the intent to eat them tomorrow, that also applies, it transfers to the bread as well. But if his idea was to do it on the bread, that applies only to the bread and not to the animals. What's the reason that it transfers from the animal to the bread, but not from the bread to the animal? Now, maybe because it says in the pasuk that the chalois is considered a toida. So you see that the bread is called a toida. So if the bread is called a toida, so if you think about from bread, it should transfer from bread to the animal. Animal and bread are the same. They're both called toida. So why can't it transfer from bread to the animal? Holy kasha. Lechem ikri toida, toida lo ikri lechem. It only goes one way. Bread is called a toida. So therefore, when you think about a toida, it goes to the bread. But toida lo ikri lechem, you don't call a toida bread. So therefore, if you think about bread, it doesn't go to the toida. So how come when it comes to the two sheep on Shavuos, it goes from the sheep to the bread, but not from the bread to the sheep? Your whole svar is because the toida bread is called a toida. You don't have that svara when it comes to Shavuos. So says Rashi, toida ikar v'lechem tafel. Glal toida means because of the toida. Bread is because of the toida. In other words, says Rashi, the toida is the main thing here. The lechem is secondary. It's a tafel. The shechita is toida mikatshel lechem. And in fact, when you shecht the toida, that gives gedusha to the bread. In other words, the bread, it comes as a, I don't know the right word, it's on the tip of my tongue. It's not secondary is okay. Listendary. Okay, some English major will send it in to me. Like that can listen. Okay, whatever. Okay, great. Next. So therefore, says the Gemara, lechem glal toida, the bread comes because of a toida. Vein toida glal lechem, the lechem, and the toida is not secondary to the bread. Lechem glal the kvasim, and kvasim glal the lechem. The bread on Shavuos is secondary to the kvasim. The ikar is the shechting of the two sheep. Utzricha, we need both cases of toida with the bread and the Shavuos shlamim with their bread. The Yashmin toida hasam udechim mefagel belechem lemefagel toida. Mishum lo yuzgeku zelo zebet nufa. As we're going to see in a second, as far as developing, when it comes to the Shavuos shlamim, you have to do something called a tnufa. You have to lift up the sheep together with the two breads, and you do moilech or maybe back forth or to the sides like a lulav. Now, to describe this, 7.5 years ago, Avi Kamiansky was bike riding in the hills of Bet Shemesh. You can see in the background. I bet you that mountain is full of buildings today. And he found an Arab there, and he paid the Arab money so that he could demonstrate. Because the shear is full of visuals.
I'm out here mountain biking. Saeed. I'm here with Saeed, and we're going to try to do Tanufa. This is what Daf Yomi is all about. Got to do the demonstrations.
We have a keves here. We have Saeed, a keves.
And I just happen to have Shtel Lechem with me, and we'll try to get this done.
Two breads. I think in the basement we should do a little nicer than that.
Watch your back.
Okay, wave it forward.
That's a heavy sheep.
You got the tail lechem? Sideways. It's a little heavy.
There he is.
This is for the Daf Yomi shirt, guys.
Now give him a kiss.
Oh. Hold
So that's Tenufa.
Awesome, excellent.
And Tenufa, as you saw in the video, thank you, Avi.
Tenufa is done.
Tenufa goes together with the breads. So says the Gemara, they are connected, so to speak, the breads and the animal are connected because you did Tenufa together. So I would think that if you do pigul on the breads, it should transfer immediately to the sheep. Why? Because they are connected. You do the Tenufa together. That's why I need both. Rebbe Lazar asked Rav a question. Here we go. As you can see here, as he's shechting this animal, he's shechting the animal, and he thinks to himself, I am going to eat tomorrow, which is outside the allotted time, after the time you're not permitted to eat any of the animal or bread. I'm going to eat a half a kezayis from the animal and a half a kezayis from the bread. Together I have one kezayis, which is the shear of pigul. Says the Gemara, I certainly cannot make the animal pigul. Why? We just established that if you do pigul 100% on the breads, it doesn't transfer to the animal. But if you do pigul on the animal, it transfers from the breads. So if you do a half a shear from the animal, a half a shear from the bread, of course it's not going to transfer from the bread to the animal. Even if you did a whole shear on the breads, it's not going to transfer to the animal. Of course it's not going to be mifagel from the breads. The question is, can the bread become pigul like this? Check this out. Can the bread become pigul through a half a zayis of the meat and a half a zayis of the bread? Can I use a half a zayis from an animal in order to make the bread pigul? Now, if I made a whole kezayis in the bread, of course it's going to become pigul. But I only have a half a zayis from the bread. And a half a zayis from the animal, can I have a tziruf, can I have a combination, can it combine to make pigul? Yes, the bread will come pigul, but the animal not. I asked the Gemara, I have an interesting kavachomer. What's the kavachomer? Uma hamafagel imispagel. The toida, which creates pigul. In other words, you take the toida, and then you have thoughts that you're going to eat the toida, the animal, outside it's a lot of time. So it creates pigul to the bread. Uma mefagel imispagel. It cannot become pigul through the bread. Habal fagel, this bread that you're trying to make pigul, v'loi pigel and yidishleis pagel. So you're trying to take a half a zayis of bread together with the half a zayis of the animal. Of course, it shouldn't become pigul. What's the kavachomer? The toida is much stronger than the bread. Toida has the power to make the bread pigul. Yet, it itself cannot become pigul through the bread. So the bread, which is weak, certainly it should not become pigul with a half a shear of the animal. Says Gemara, this kavachomer doesn't usually work. But Tanya, we had a story. We know that it's also to plant in a vineyard. Midaraisa, it's wheat, as we're going to see soon, luf, a couple of things. This is midaraisa. You're not allowed to plant in your vineyard other things. What they're doing right now, sowing wheat, is mamish issa deraisa. Comes a guy, a random person, and decides to utilize the space between the vines for himself. And he plants. And we have a concept in Shas, Ein Adam Oiser Dover Sheina Shaloi. You cannot ask for something that doesn't belong to you. Now, it doesn't always apply. But in this case, it does. Why? Because it's D'Rabbanan. And it's not just the D'Rabbanan, it's a penalty of D'Rabbanan. Let's just do the sponsor so Mark doesn't have to remind me. Oops. Not this. Turning to the Daf by Adar Global, your one-stop shop for all your financial needs. Isaac Castle, in honor of all the MDY Daffers in South Florida, we shall all be Zoicha, to be Matzliach, Beruchnis, Ubegashmis. Anonymous, in memory of Moshe ben Peret's first yard site, of Zayin Shvat. What didn't they say? In the Masechta, I didn't say all these. The Masechta is sponsored by Joel Gedalis, Lina Shmas, my father, Jack Gedalis, Anonymous, Aslach Baruch Nivigashmis, the Palachik Family Foundation, Zech Nishmas, Rav Agoin, Shlomo Palachik, the Meshech Tzerilu. Okay, yeah, you're right, I didn't say that. Somebody's paying attention over there. So it says the Gemara B'Ma'isa, the Chacham B'Asher says Rav Yitur Zakfanim. The story came in from the Chachamim, and they said that everything you planted becomes osur, but all the vines are 100% motiv. Amai, say the exact Kavachomer as you just said now. The grapes that they cause isur, they themselves didn't become osur. Habola esor, so certainly what you planted, these different seeds that you planted, they didn't create an isur to the grapes. And it didn't. Certainly they themselves shouldn't become osur. Says Gemara, so why? Don't bring me right from here. Hasam kambas v'luv asur Torah. The Torah asserted cannabis. I don't know if it means what they call today cannabis, something similar from the same family, or hemp. That's what the Torah asserted. Sharzroim in the Rabbanon Asiri, but everything else is only assumed in the Rabbanon. Hi, David Yisur Rabbanon. This guy that planted where he wasn't supposed to be planting, the Rabbanon punished him. Hi, the Leiba Yisur like it's a Rabbanon. But the guy that owns the vineyard, Rabbanon did not penalize him. But by us, why can't you say Kavachomer? Now, interesting story that happened in Yerushalayim, that somebody they didn't have a lot of water. They were giving out water, with the tzena, it's called, or whatever it was called back then. They didn't have water, they didn't have bread, they were very poor. And each person got an allotted amount of water, and somebody came by and stuck his hand in somebody's water. Now, he had a question, the owner of the water, can he use it for Netilas Yadayim since somebody put his hand in there? So they wanted to say, well, you cannot ask for something that's not yours. The Rav Frank said, no. What if I pour milk into your basar v'challah, into your meat? Of course it becomes also. When do you say when you have a knas d'Rabbanan, like in this case over here? So you cannot answer your friend's vineyard with a d'Rabbanan plant because it's a knas. But anyways, he said at the end that he touched the water, but the rest of the water is more than it's batal b'roiv, and therefore you're allowed to use it. That's what he said at the end. Now we're going to go really quick because word for word what we just said, it's chazar. Just instead of talking about the Toida, we're going to be talking about the two sheep on Shavuos. Rav, same words, over. Rabbi Elazar asked Rav, somebody shechted the sheep in order to eat a kazayis, a total kazayis. Half a kazayis from the sheep and half a kazayis from the bread, ma'u. Certainly you cannot make the sheep pigul. If you had in mind while you're doing a whole kazayis from bread onto the sheep, it doesn't work. Certainly, if it's only half from the bread and half from it, it's not going to work. But the question is, can I use the half from? Just take this chart and pretend it's on Shavuos. Can I take a half from the sheep and half from the breads and make the breads also? Can I combine the sheep, the meat, the half kazayis together with the bread? Over here also we'll say the bread becomes pigel, but not the sheep. We should say the same thing we said before. The sheep who are the ones that do pigel, they themselves don't become pigel. So certainly the bread that is coming to become pigel and it didn't become pigel certainly shouldn't make the strong guy, the sheep, pigel. As do I say such a thing? But tell you we had a story. Somebody planted in a blooming vineyard, planted some seeds. And over there we said that he gets punished, but the owner of the vineyard does not. You should say the same you just said. The grapes don't become asur. So the seedlings in the center, they're coming to answer the grapes. Certainly they themselves should not become asur. But what's the connection? The Torah, there's only a few things that you're not allowed to plant with their eyes. But other seeds are only with the rabbanon. So the person who planted, he did the isur, he gets punished. But the owner of the vineyard doesn't get punished. He didn't do anything. Like it's the rabbanon. But by us, perhaps you should say the Kalchaim. Says Gemara, if you say this svara when it comes to the carbon taida, so certainly on the sheep of Shavuos. The Gemara is going to explain. It's only because by the sheep of Shavuos, there's a tnufa like Avi Kamiansky did. He raised, lift, this, that, together with the bread. So now we just tie the breads together with the animal, and that's why they're one, perhaps, and that's why they're connected, and that's why if you do I said that's why 6 times. That's why if you think about pigel on the breads, maybe it transfers to the sheep because they're one. I would say such a thing. Rabbi Abizud said the question is like this: Rabbi Loza asked Rav something else. If he shechs a sheep, now we're talking about the 2 sheep. Okay, these 2 guys on Shavuos, and he shechs a sheep to eat a kazayis from its friend tomorrow. Now, what in the world is a friend? We know that on Shavuos you have to shecht both sheep in order to eat the bread, so each one is a 50% matter. Each one allows you to eat the bread, but only in a 50% capacity. When I say friend, do I mean, I'm looking at this guy, the friend, I'm shechting shlomim on the right, his friend is on the left, or perhaps his friend is referring to the bread. Since either I hold that in Fagel Chatzi Matir I can't do pigel on half, or I hold you could, but it's not enough over here. Chaver keves mashma b'lim Fagel. Oy dilma lechem mashma Fagel. Perhaps I was referring to the bread, and it becomes pigel. So we learned if I shechted one of the sheep in order to eat from itself tomorrow, in other words, the sheep are not connected, and therefore if I make pigel on one, it doesn't apply to the other. But it says mefurish, and over here it says the word friend, and it's referring to, guess what? The sheep, not the bread. So that's a raya that we're talking about sheep and not bread. Shneim ksherim, the both kosher. Alma, what do we see from here? Chaver keves mashma. When I say the word friend, I mean the other sheep. Because if I'm talking about the bread would become pigul. Says Gemara, it's not a good raya because maybe over here we're talking about a situation where he actually says not just the word friend, but he says friend sheep. Says the Mishnah, Hazevach mefagel es anesachim shekotche b'kli. There are two korbanos, the oil and the shlamim, where in addition to the actual carbon, you bring a bunch of wine. This is white wine, water. Now let's talk about the shlamim. Shlamim is easier to understand because shlamim, you get to eat the actual animal. It's a kachim kalim. You get to eat it. Oila, as we know, kulay Hashem, it all goes in the mizbeach. So hazevach mefagel es hanesachim mishakash b'kli. The remeir. Once you pour the wine into the vessel, it becomes kadosh. And when I think a bad intent, I think while I'm shechting this shlamim, that I'm going to eat the shlamim in 3 days from now, instead of 2 days, I could do pigul. This wine in the cup becomes pigul. But if my intent was on the wine, I'm saying this wine should become pigul. That doesn't have an effect on the animal. Ketzad, what's the case? I'm shechting this shlamim to eat it tomorrow. Now, it could also be referring to the oila. I say I'm going to put the oila on the mizbeach tomorrow. It itself, let's talk about the shlamim. The shlamim itself, the animal itself becomes pigul, so too does the wine become pigul. But if I say, I'm going to put the wine tomorrow on the mizbeach, I'm going to do it later than I'm allowed to. So that actually creates pigul to the actual wine. And if I drink the wine, I'm over on chorus. But has no effect on the shlamim because you cannot transfer the isur pigul from the wine to the shlamim. You could transfer from the shlamim to the wine. The wines, you're chayav pigul, because there's something that has in order for something to become pigul, it has to have a matter that we discussed yesterday. So the shirayim, all this leftover flour from the kmitza becomes pigul. Why? Because this small amount of kmitza goes on the mizbeach. This is the matter. This is the allower for me to eat this. The same thing when it comes to a carbon. When I sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach, that allows me to eat the shlamim. At that moment, I'm allowed to eat the shlamim, not a moment before. So shlamim has a matter. Shlamim, I can eat. A carbon has a matter. The wine also has a matter. When I sprinkle the blood on the mizbeach, then I'm allowed to put the wine on the mizbeach. It seems like there's no connection between the carbon animal and the wine. Why? Because I could bring the carbon today and I could bring the wine in 10 days from now, in 20 days from now, in 2 years from now. There's no limit to when I could bring the wine. So they're not connected. If they're not connected, I can't make pigul from one to the other. You're right. But in a situation where I do bring the wine today together with the carbon. Says Gemara, but at the last moment, I could switch it from animal A to animal B, and therefore they're not connected. Once I shech this animal, then this wine is appointed to this animal. I can't change it to another animal. We're going to do the same exact thing all over again. Chazara to the bottom of the amud, and then we stop. Like shemen, the amount of a lug of oil, shel mitzayra. So let's see if we have an updated version. I know that Yoshi wanted to. This is Nesachim, by the way. Pouring the wine on the Mizbeach into the Shitin. Let's see. No. This is wrong. Why is it wrong? Because it's the wrong side of the thumb. It's supposed to be on the nail part. But anyways, just to remind the Olam, you're supposed to smear oil on top of the blood and on his toe and his thumb and on his head, on his ear. And the rest goes on his head. So, look, Shemesh al Mitzayir Chayom Lo Mishum Bigel. And now, if the Kohen taught himself that he's going to use this oil, in another day from now, Yechayev Pigul. Now, we'll see. That's not really the case. It's more with the karba. Mipnei shedam osham atir lebahoynos. Because the blood of the osham that the mitzvah brings allows you to apply the oil on his thumbs, on his thumb and on his large toe. Dirimer. What's the connection between the carbon and the oil? The oil can be brought 10 days from now, 100 days from now. I'm referring to oil that comes together that day with the asham. But you can put it and designate it to another carbon. Because Rameir holds once you shech this asham, then the oil becomes locked in, just like the breads of a taida that become locked into that particular taida, and therefore you can't change it, and therefore they are one. If they're one unit, one has hashpa on the other. So if I do pigul on the asham, it has an effect on the oil as well. Boisai, have a wonderful day.
Merit the schus of spreading Torah throughout the world. Sponsor a shir today. MDYsponsor.com or sponsor at MDYDaf.com.